Picture a creature with no brain, no bones, no blood, and no recognizable organs we'd call vital. It drifts through ocean currents like a living ghost, translucent and impossibly simple in its design. For 600 million years, jellyfish have existed in this minimalist form, unchanged and seemingly unchanging. We've always assumed sleep required consciousness, that rest belonged exclusively to creatures with complex nervous systems. But what if everything we believed about sleep was fundamentally incomplete, missing the most important truth? Recent discoveries reveal that jellyfish sleep despite having no brain to shut down at night. This finding doesn't just challenge our understanding of these ancient drifters, it revolutionizes sleep science entirely. If brainless animals sleep, then consciousness isn't what makes rest necessary after all each day. Sleep predates thought itself, a fundamental requirement programmed into life's earliest code billions of years. Welcome to the mystery of the sleeping jellyfish. The paradox of consciousness. Humans spend roughly 1/3 of our lives in a state that seems wasteful by evolutionary standards. We become vulnerable, unaware, and completely defenseless against threats lurking in darkness around us nightly. Yet sleep persists across virtually every animal species scientists have ever studied in any detail. For decades, researchers assumed sleep served primarily to rest our energy-hungry brains after daily activities. The human brain consumes approximately 20% of our total energy despite representing only 2%. Consciousness itself demands enormous metabolic resources to maintain awareness, process information, and generate self-reflection continuously. When we sleep, consciousness fades away temporarily, giving our overtaxed neurons time to recover properly. This explanation seemed logical, elegant, and completely consistent with everything scientists observe about sleep patterns. But this brain-centric model contained a fundamental assumption that nobody had properly questioned until recently. What about creatures that never possess consciousness in the first place? Organisms without brains entirely. Jellyfish belong to phylum Cnidaria, one of the most ancient animal lineages still surviving today. Their body plan is radially symmetrical, built around a central digestive cavity with tentacles radiating outward. They possess a decentralized nerve net instead of a brain, simple neurons distributed throughout tissues. This nervous system allows basic reflexes and responses to environmental stimuli like light or touch. But there's no central processing, no consciousness, no awareness of self or surroundings in any way. Jellyfish don't think, don't plan, don't remember, and don't experience anything resembling human awareness. They're essentially biological automatons responding to environmental triggers with hardwired reflexes and simple behaviors only. Given this profound simplicity, asking whether jellyfish sleep seemed almost absurd to early researchers initially. Sleep without consciousness makes no logical sense if consciousness is what requires rest each night. Yet scientists began noticing something peculiar about jellyfish behavior that demanded closer scientific investigation. During nighttime hours, these creatures showed markedly reduced activity levels compared to their daytime behavior. They pulsed their bells less frequently, drifted more passively, and responded more slowly to stimuli. Was this sleep or merely reduced activity because prey became scarce at night across oceans? The distinction matters enormously because it determines whether sleep is truly universal across all animals. If jellyfish genuinely sleep, then the entire scientific understanding of why sleep exists needs revision. The experiment begins. Proving that an animal sleeps requires more than just observing reduced activity during specific hours. Scientists needed rigorous criteria to distinguish genuine sleep from simple rest or energy conservation behaviors. The field established 3 key requirements that brainless animals must meet to qualify as sleeping. First, the animal must show periods of reduced activity that occur with predictable, regular timing. Second, the animal must exhibit decreased responsiveness to external stimuli during these periods compared to others. Third, the animal must show signs of sleep deprivation if prevented from entering these states. These criteria ensure we're observing true sleep rather than simple inactivity or behavioral rhythms. Researchers at Caltech decided to test whether jellyfish met all three requirements using ingenious experiments. They focused on Cassiopea jellyfish, an unusual species that spends much time resting upside down on surfaces. These upside-down jellyfish pulse rhythmically during active periods, pumping water through their bodies almost constantly. The research team needed a way to measure responsiveness accurately during both day and night. They designed a simple but elegant test using a hollow cylindrical tube that could fall. When the tube descended through water and touched the jellyfish, the animal would instinctively recoil away. The researchers could measure precisely how long it took each jellyfish to begin its escape response. During daytime hours, jellyfish reacted almost instantly when the falling tube made contact with them. But nighttime tests revealed something remarkable. Reaction times increased dramatically when jellyfish were tested after dark. The same individual jellyfish that responded in fractions of a second during day took significantly longer. This delayed response suggested the jellyfish existed in a different physiological state at night fundamentally. But the most compelling evidence came when researchers immediately repeated the tube drop test subsequently. After the first nighttime disturbance, jellyfish reaction speeds returned to normal daytime levels almost instantly. It was as if the first tube drop woke the jellyfish from sleep, making subsequent responses. This pattern perfectly mimicked what happens when sleeping humans are startled awake by sudden noises. First responses are slow and confused, but once awake, subsequent reactions normalize quickly and efficiently. Sleep deprivation without a brain. The tube drop experiments provided strong evidence, but scientists needed to meet that third criterion. Could jellyfish experience sleep deprivation if prevented from resting? And would they show compensatory responses? The research team designed a follow-up study that was simple in concept but revelatory in results. Throughout entire nights, researchers repeatedly disturbed jellyfish, preventing them from entering their reduced activity state successfully. They gently pulsed water near the jellyfish, stimulating them just enough to prevent prolonged inactivity. The goal was to keep the jellyfish awake all night by forcing them to respond. The next day, researchers carefully monitored the sleep-deprived jellyfish to measure any behavioral changes compared. What they observed was striking. The disturbed jellyfish showed dramatically reduced activity levels the following day. They pulsed their bells fewer times per minute and spent more time completely inactive. Even more remarkably, the effect was directly proportional to how much disturbance they experienced previously. Jellyfish that were bothered more intensely throughout the night showed greater reductions in next-day activity. This dose-dependent relationship strongly suggested the animals were compensating for lost sleep through increased rest. The jellyfish were essentially catching up on sleep they'd been deprived of the previous night. This phenomenon, sleep rebound or compensatory rest, is a hallmark of true sleep across animal species. Humans sleep longer after sleep deprivation, and apparently brainless jellyfish do exactly the same thing. The experiments definitively proved that jellyfish meet all three scientific criteria for sleep despite lacking brains. These simple creatures with decentralized nervous systems somehow need periods of reduced responsiveness and compensate when prevented. The implications of this discovery rippled through neuroscience, evolutionary biology, and sleep research communities worldwide. If jellyfish sleep, then sleep cannot be primarily about resting our conscious minds at all. Rethinking sleep's purpose. The jellyfish sleep discovery forced scientists to fundamentally reconsider why sleep exists in the first place. For years, theories focused on the brain, consolidating memories, clearing metabolic waste, reorganizing neural connections. These functions certainly occur during human sleep and likely contribute to why we need rest. But they cannot be the fundamental reason sleep evolved if brainless animals also sleep regularly. The answer lies in recognizing that life itself, not consciousness, is what demands restoration periodically. Every living cell performs thousands of chemical reactions every second, generating energy and building proteins. These processes create molecular damage, misfolded proteins, oxidative stress, cellular debris that accumulates during activity. Even simple cells need time to repair damage, recalibrate systems, and restore optimal functioning. Sleep provides that restoration period, a protected state where maintenance can occur without activity demands. In jellyfish, sleep likely allows cellular repair, metabolic reset, and nervous system maintenance despite simplicity. Their nerve net, though primitive, still fires signals, releases neurotransmitters, and experiences activity-dependent stress. Even without a brain, these neural processes require periodic recovery that sleep provides universally. This understanding reveals sleep as one of life's most ancient and fundamental adaptations ever evolved. Jellyfish and humans last shared a common ancestor approximately 600 million years ago during Precambrian. That ancestor, whatever form it took, likely already slept, passing this trait down through diverging lineages. Sleep is therefore a conserved characteristic, so essential that evolution has maintained it across all animals. Think about what this means for the timeline of evolutionary innovations throughout Earth's biological history. Complex brains evolved relatively recently, appearing perhaps 500 million years ago in various primitive forms. Bodies with bilateral symmetry emerged around 550 million years ago, revolutionizing animal design and possibilities. But sleep predates all these sophisticated adaptations, existing before they ever appeared in fossil records. Animals were sleeping before they developed centralized brains capable of thought and conscious awareness entirely. They were sleeping before they evolved complex bodies with specialized organs for different vital functions. They were sleeping before they could walk on land, fly through air, or swim efficiently. Sleep came first, establishing itself as a non-negotiable requirement that all subsequent evolution accommodated necessarily. Sleep's evolutionary foundation. This ancient origin suggests something profound about the relationship between sleep and other biological functions. If sleep evolved 600 million years ago, then most animal traits developed in organisms already sleeping. Brain evolution occurred in creatures that already had sleep-wake cycles regulating their basic physiology. The sophisticated nervous systems we see today were built within the framework of existing sleep. This means sleep likely wasn't just a passive companion to brain evolution, but an active enabler. The cellular maintenance and restoration that sleep provides may have been prerequisites for developing complexity. Without regular maintenance periods, the molecular damage from increased neural activity might have prevented brains. Sleep essentially provided the scaffolding upon which evolution could build increasingly sophisticated nervous systems safely. The same logic applies to other major evolutionary transitions throughout animal history, as we know. Moving from water onto land imposed enormous physiological challenges, requiring new adaptations for breathing, locomotion. But organisms making this transition already possess sleep, allowing them to manage the increased metabolic demands. Sleep provided the recovery capacity necessary to sustain terrestrial life's greater energy expenditure effectively. Similarly, the evolution of warm-blooded metabolism in birds and mammals required managing much higher energy demands. Endothermy allows constant activity regardless of environmental temperature, but at enormous metabolic cost to organisms. Sleep likely became even more critical as metabolic rates increased, providing essential time for restoration. Without adequate sleep, the cellular damage from constant high metabolism would overwhelm repair mechanisms completely. This perspective transforms how we understand sleep from optional luxury to fundamental biological necessity. Absolutely. Sleep isn't something that evolved to serve our brains. Our brains evolved within organisms that already. Every aspect of animal biology developed with sleep as a given, an unchangeable parameter. Removing sleep from any animal proves catastrophic because their entire physiology assumes its presence intrinsically. In humans, prolonged sleep deprivation causes cognitive impairment, emotional instability, and eventually death if continued. Laboratory rats die within weeks if completely deprived of sleep, even when provided adequate food. The fact that sleep deprivation proves universally fatal across species demonstrates its non-negotiable status clearly. We literally cannot survive without sleep because every cellular process in our bodies depends on it. The Jellyfish Connection. Jellyfish sleeping reveals something beautiful about the continuity of life across evolutionary time and distance. When you lie down tonight and drift into unconsciousness, you're engaging in the same process. That drifting jellyfish, separated from you by 600 million years of evolution, experiences something fundamentally. You both need restoration, cellular repair, metabolic reset that only sleep provides to living organisms. This shared requirement connects all animals in ways we rarely consider or appreciate in our daily. The complexity of human consciousness, our capacity for language, art, and abstract thought. None of these. We remain biological organisms subject to the same fundamental constraints as the simplest animals alive. Sleep reminds us of this deep connection, bridging the vast diversity of animal life today. The discovery also highlights how much remains unknown about even the most basic biological processes. Scientists have studied sleep for centuries, yet only recently discovered brainless animals experience it regularly. How many other assumptions about biology remain unquestioned, waiting for someone to investigate unusual organisms? Jellyfish sleeping demonstrates the value of studying creatures that seem too simple to be interesting. These ancient animals preserve ancestral traits that complex organisms have obscured through layers of adaptation. By studying jellyfish, hydras, sponges, and other primitive creatures, scientists access windows into biology's past. These organisms show us what life looked like before brains, before complex bodies emerged. They reveal the fundamental requirements that all subsequent evolution built upon through millions of years. Implications for modern life. Understanding sleep's ancient origin and universal necessity carries practical implications for human health and society. We live in a culture that often treats sleep as negotiable, something to sacrifice for productivity. The rise of artificial lighting has decoupled human activity from natural day-night cycles completely. Many people chronically sleep less than their bodies require, accumulating significant sleep debt over time. But if sleep is fundamental enough that even brainless jellyfish require it, perhaps we should reconsider. Our bodies aren't designed to function without adequate rest any more than jellyfish are designed. The cellular damage, metabolic dysfunction, and physiological stress from sleep deprivation accumulate regardless of willpower. Modern conveniences allow us to ignore sleep's demands temporarily, but the biological debt eventually comes. Research links chronic sleep deprivation to numerous health problems, including obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and more. Insufficient sleep impairs immune function, making us more susceptible to infections and slower to recover. It disrupts hormonal regulation, affecting everything from appetite to stress responses throughout our bodies. Most concerningly, chronic sleep loss increases risk of neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's in later life. These consequences make sense when we recognize sleep as a fundamental biological process, not luxury. Just as we cannot indefinitely skip eating or breathing, we cannot skip sleeping without severe consequences. The jellyfish experiments remind us that sleep predates human existence by hundreds of millions of years. Evolution has had ample time to make sleep optional if it were truly unnecessary for survival. Yet sleep persists universally across the animal kingdom, from jellyfish to humans, because life requires it. This should change how we approach sleep in modern society, elevating it to proper importance. Rather than badge of honor, chronic sleep deprivation should be recognized as serious health risk. The sleeping jellyfish teaches us that consciousness is not what makes rest essential to life. Long before animals developed brains capable of thought, they were already sleeping through ancient oceans. Sleep is woven into the very fabric of animal existence, a requirement as fundamental as. When we close our eyes each night, we're participating in a ritual 600 million. That drifting, brainless jellyfish and you share this ancient bond across evolutionary distances incomprehensibly vast. Perhaps tonight, as you drift towards sleep, you'll remember this connection to something profoundly simple. In sleep, we're reminded that despite our complexity, we remain part of life's ancient web. Rest well, knowing even the simplest creatures understand what you're doing completely.